Alright everybody, and welcome to another Collegian Gaming Battle Report. Today we are going to be breaking out a little Black Powder, specifically the Epic American Civil War. So I'm going to be doing this one today as a solo gameplay. I think personally Black Powder lends to being a very good solo game system if you're just looking to throw some dice and really don't have anyone else to play along with. Compared to other game systems like, I don't know, say Frostgrave or Fallout, Wasteland Warfare that have their own actual solo rules and plays, this game lends to be a very good solo play simply because shooting is always going to happen. Movement is pretty straightforward. The big thing is command phases, so although you can kind of lean to one side favoritism or not, the dice are still going to determine all of that. So it plays out really well as a solo gameplay, and I had this stuff out from doing a demo day the other day, so I figured might as well go ahead and give it a shot. So we're going to take a look at the battlefield, we'll take a look at the forces, and kind of give a little bit of a historical setup of exactly what's going on here. Alright everybody, so just to kind of set the scene, it is early October 1861. We are in the Cheat Mountains in what is now West Virginia, at the time Virginia. We are going to be doing the Battle of Greenbrier River, also known as the Battle of Camp Bartow. So a little bit of a history behind this, because I think it just kind of lends to the thematics of the game. So we have General Jackson of the Confederacy had set up Camp Bartow in the Cheat Mountains in mid-September of 1861. A lot of his soldiers were extremely ill at the time. Matter of fact, this brigade down here, Colonel Taliaferro, and I'm going to get that wrong a lot, at the time had reported about a third of his men were sick and down due to illness. So you got to remember, at this time, early in the Civil War, a lot of these men have never left their small towns. So now all of a sudden you throw them together with thousands and thousands of men in not the greatest living conditions, and illness just spread rampant. So he had set up Camp Bartow in the Cheat Mountains to kind of rest and recover a little bit and to try to get his men back into fighting shape. General Reynolds, who was just coming off a victory by repelling, I believe it was General, I want to say Loring's, is kind of trying to ride that morale high and decides that he's going to try to attack here. As I always like to joke, in the American Civil War, every great story and every great battle was always, well, if we break them here, we can push to Virginia, or if we break them here, we can push to D.C. And that's exactly what Reynolds was trying to do. It was basically, if he could push through here in the Western Virginia, which is now West Virginia, he'd be able to have a straight road, push into Virginia, end the war before it even really got started. So that was his intention and goals. So beginning of October, he decided to begin to make his push. The trouble with that is 2 to 3 days before he decides to make his attack, this area is hit with a deluge of rain, non-stop rain, for about 2 days. So a lot of his forces end up falling ill as well, and makes the ground really kind of difficult to maneuver through. He decides he's still going to attack and begins to push out at midnight, October 2nd into October 3rd, and at about 0800 makes contact with the outskirt pickets and camp security of Camp Bartow and the Confederacy. They unfortunately were not obviously prepared and ready for it. Due to the weather, a lot of their weapons ended up malfunctioning and basically had to fled the camp and fell back into more open territory where they can kind of consolidate, regain their composure, and bring a good proper fight. So that is where we are left right now. We'll talk a little bit more about what actually happened during the battle and the outcome of it at the end of this game, so we can kind of compare it and see how it goes. But that is where we're at right now. So we're going to take a closer look at the forces, and then actually before I do that, let's actually take a closer look at the table, explain how the table is going to be played out, and then we'll take a look at the forces, which you can see I already have laid out here. So this is the Greenbrier River that runs through. It is completely fordable. it does drop your movement to half distance for each move through there. The brown felt is obviously roads. Excuse just the fact that it's felt. I don't really actually have anything for this scale, so I'll end up mudding these up and cleaning these up a little bit to look a little nicer. The building there is the Traveler's Repose, as it was called. It is not a building that can be entered. It is just there for decoration and to block a little bit of sight. There are a couple hills you can see here that I do have kind of pressed up through. I don't know if you can see better this way with the shadows. Depending on line of sight, we may play that they can shoot over other units. That'll be kind of dependent on what the situation is. The trees that are scattered are just there to break up the table a little bit. So that is it. Pretty open field, and that's where we're going to be. So we're going to play this as based off of the scenario and what they're trying to accomplish. So wins, losses. We're only going to play, I think, 8 turns seems good for this. We may play more depending where that's at, but when we talk about the outcome of this battle, you'll see that it wasn't a great clash and it wasn't a whole lot of casualties. So 8 turns kind of seems fair in this. Really, it's pretty simple. The Confederates' objective here is basically just to keep the Union from crossing the creek and try to bounce and repel them. Simple as that. We'll play it based off at the end of the game what that looks like to see if they've accomplished that. The Union side is very easy. Again, they want to push across the creek. They want to break through the Confederate line. So the way that we'll kind of judge that is how many forces they have across the creek and what the Confederacy state looks like at that time to kind of judge who the victor is on that. So a pretty straightforward battle. For those that have the starter set, you know that this is pretty much the first scenario in the smaller rule book that comes with the starter set, because it's really easy. Both sides are fairly even on this side, and you'll see as we go through here. So it's a pretty straightforward fight. So let's look at the forces, and then we will get rolling. Okay, for the Union side, our divisional commander on the table is going to be Brigadier General Joseph Reynolds. He's going to be the overall command. He has 2 brigades that are pretty much identical to each other on the table. I've actually tried to do some research, and I can't find anywhere where his brigade commanders are actually named. Even in a scenario book, it just says 1st Brigade, 2nd Brigade. I've done some other research I can't find. So for as much as I like to try to do historical stuff, I'm not sure if he just kind of was running overall command of everything and didn't really identify that, or you know, who he actually put in charge, or it just wasn't written because, again, it's very early on in the war. But let's look first here. We have 1st Brigade, so I have the brigade commander there. There are 4 regiments. Now, I do play the regiments at 3 stands. I know that's what most people seem to be playing. I think it just works a little bit better. So in 1st Brigade, we have the 7th Indiana. We have the 25th Ohio, 32nd Ohio. We have Looms, Michigan's Battery, and the 24th Ohio. And these are gapped right now. They're in marching column. They're gapped just so we could look at the labels and see who they are. So this is actually their 6-pounder smoothbore. It's a 6-gun battery. So that's why there's 3 there. And then we have in 2nd Brigade, same thing. We have 14th Indiana. We have the 13th Indiana, the 9th, and the 15th Indiana as well. And then the artillery is the 4th U.S. Light Artillery. So again, set up exactly the same. The reason why I haven't set up this way is kind of, again, thematically, they hit the camp, they pushed forward, so I have a regiment in each brigade that's already in battle line. That was kind of the initial thrust, and everyone else is just trying to catch up to the fight. So that is how we are laid out on the Union side. Let's take a look at the Confederate side. Alright, the Confederate side is about the same, pretty much the exact same force, except for minor detail with the artillery, but it's set up a little bit differently. So overall command is Brigadier General Henry Jackson. He actually has 3 brigades under him that are actually a little bit smaller. So we'll go to his left flank here where we have Colonel Rust, and then we have, this is Lieutenant Colonel Hansborough's battalion, doesn't say where they're from, 31st Virginia, 3rd Arkansas, and then we have Anderson's battery for the artillery. So only 3 regiments, and the gun is only a 4-gun crew, or 4 guns battery. So a little bit smaller. And then in the center here, we have Colonel Johnson with just 2 regiments, the 1st and the 12th Georgia, kind of holding the center, determining where he needs to go, probably to kind of hold that forward. And then on the right-hand side here, we have Colonel Taliaferro with the 44th, the 23rd, 25th Virginia, and then he has also Shoemaker's Battery, again, just a 4-gun battery, 6-pounder smooth bores for all the artillery. So one thing to mention real quick before I do get started here, I'm still playing around with the rules. I know some people half the inches, some people use centimeters at this scale. I personally find that I kind of like centimeters. The only downfall to that is command radiuses become extremely small. So I actually keep the command radiuses still in inches. Because when you look at trying to keep these guys within that 6 or 12 inch bubble, or it gets very tough when it's in centimeters. It's very small. There's no way you can keep that command ratio. So I still keep the command radiuses at inches. Everything else will be played at centimeters. The Union has the first turn. Again, we are going to play 8 turns, and we will see who comes out victorious here. So one more quick note here before we get started. For tokens that I use on the table, so you know what I'm doing here. I have these little glass beads that I will use for stamina. I have these little flame markers that I will use when they're disordered. And I actually put out these little yellow glass beads to remind me when they are whipped on the table, just so I can help keep track of that as well. So as I'm putting things out, those are the markers that I use. They're pretty identifiable on the table, makes it kind of easy. Alright, we have the foreboding skull dice out to mark the turns. It will be, like I said, Union has the top of the turn. I will do all of the movement off camera. It just makes it easier to explain what happens afterwards. Unless we have any charges or anything specific going on, and then I will roll on camera. So, let me get the Union moved and we will come back. So, Union movement is over. And if it looks like nothing moved, that's because it really didn't. So before I go any further, all command ratings are 8. I forgot to mention that. You have to excuse me. I've only played Black Powder maybe 4 or 5 times, and it's the first time I've recorded for the channel. So if I mess anything up, please comment in the comment section. Obviously, I want to learn, but it is going to happen. So if I kind of reference stuff later on when I should have, sorry. But yeah, command rating is 8 across the board. So I started with 1st Brigade over here. First order I gave was to move the guys that were already up in the battle line up to the creek. They succeeded very well on a 5 and were able to move up. The rest of the brigade, if you're wondering why these guys are on the edge and the rest of them are off table, that is because I rolled a blunder, followed by a 1, which means a full retreat twice to the back. So they actually are off the table. Now they are not shaken or anything like that, so they can come back, and they will try to come back next turn. But that was what happened to them. I haven't moved any of the commanders yet because I was just going to wait to kind of show. So he's basically going to come back here because he really needs them to come back to the table. On the right hand flank here, 2nd Brigade, first order attempt I gave was I just wanted to kind of start to move some of these guys up, get them in battle line and move them up. They failed, didn't go anywhere, so his staying right there. General Reynolds is going to kind of come over and see what's going on over here because his left flank is in such chaotic order. He needs these guys to do what they can do to get where they need to get. So that was it. Now I didn't move these guys. I got to give them their free. Nope, I can't give them a free move because actually their first order was to form a battle line, so it was not to move. So they are there as well. And that's it. So yeah, even with being in March column, they rolled an 11. So yeah, not good. So what I'm going to start doing is actually I'll start putting dice behind them when I reference them so we can see what we rolled in case situations like that. But the Union turn was not good, and the line to get up is already in trouble, and those guys are going to probably have a fight on their hands if they don't get some support soon. So let's get the Confederate side moved. Alright, Confederate movement done for turn 1. Let's start left to right here. So I gave a brigade order to move up as far as the creek line where the first unit would touch and kind of start to form there. I didn't want to push too far forward until they started crossing the creek. I rolled a 7, so they got their 1 move up. good there. On the center here, I ordered these guys to move up once each and to start to form battle lines. They rolled a 8, so they are 8 plus in march column, so they got their 1 move, so they have moved up as well. And on the right hand side here, I tried to give a brigade order to basically move up. I kind of wanted them into touching the creek. I knew they'd be obviously close for shooting, but I needed to get them up as fast as possible so I could really start to hurt them. And I rolled a 10, so they failed and sat where they were. And then I ended up moving the General Jackson over here to his right flank to hopefully try to get them going next turn. I'm using obviously the standard rule where they get 1 free reroll to use for their people. So that is the end of turn 1. Obviously no shooting. Confederates are a little bit more motivated. They saw the confusion in the Union ranks and decided to try to take advantage of it a little bit and at least start to kind of regain their composure and get moving. So we'll go to Union turn 2 and see what happens. End of move for turn 2 for the Union. So the 32nd and 25th decided to come back on a 7. Luckily I moved him back because that would have been bad. I don't know what happened. Maybe they smelled the bacon cooking in the Confederate camp still and got distracted, but they're back. Got them 1 move up. I then moved the guns up, tried to get them moved up and unlimbered. They just moved their 8. And then out of the rest of them, these guys actually did pretty well. So they actually moved up, and that is the 24th Ohio. They actually moved up once, changed battle line to battle line, and then moved up again. And then the 4th and 7th Indiana are just holding out, waiting for their reinforcements. On the right-hand flank here was 2nd Brigade. I ordered the artillery first to move up and unlimber. They got to move once, got to where they are. On the right-hand flank, I ordered these guys to the 15th Indiana to reform and continue to move. They failed the first time. I used the reroll. They passed on a 7, got in a battle line, didn't get any further. These guys I moved up. I wanted to kind of get them more up on line, but because I'm starting to cross the creek there, that didn't happen. So the 11th Indiana just moved up once. And then after that, that was as far as I got with them. I didn't want to start moving these guys just yet. I probably should have, to be honest, but I didn't. I'm running out of room. I need to get some things moving so I can start a secondary battle line. So that is where we are. No shooting again for the Union. So we're going to go to Confederates, bottom of 2. Alright, so the Confederates have definitely regained their composure. Started here on the left flank, so they took advantage of the fact that the Union just couldn't get their stuff together here. So we had Colonel Rust give a brigade order to the 3 regiments to basically move at full speed, move up 3 if we could, then try to form a little bit of a battle line. They rolled a 4, which is nice. Now these guys did slow up because they started touching the creek a little bit, which kind of, luckily these guys were behind. I was going to move them forward, but with them slowing up, I was able to move them at an angle up. So they got a really good movement up. They're going to be in a good position that they're going to be able to start putting some pressure on the Union right flank pretty hard. And then the artillery, I ordered to move up and unlimber to try to cover that gap because I am worried about those guys kind of coming in on the flank. And I rolled a 3. So they moved up, unlimbered, did what they needed to do. In the center here with Colonel Johnson, he got the 1st Georgia to form a battle line, or to move up and form a battle line, which they did. And I did declare there, even though I rolled really well, that's where they stayed, which is actually good because then the 12th Georgia, I wanted to kind of move up and form a battle line and behind them. They only rolled an 8, so they only moved up once behind. So on the right-hand flank here, again, good things. Taliaferro wanted to push his guys all the way forward. Again, I kind of did say just 2 moves up as a battle line, which I rolled a 6, well enough to get them where I wanted to get them. And then the artillery I did roll separately because I wanted them to come up this way and unlimber. Sorry, bad camera, not even in focus. So I wanted the artillery to come up and unlimber. I rolled a 6, so they got to where I wanted them to get to. I keep bumping things. They're actually, I promise they were actually like that. And so they're on. Luckily, they were on the road, even with a 6. So limbered artillery on the road gave me a +2, so their command went to a 10, and they were easily able to get to where I wanted to. And General Jackson just kind of came up to focus on the center line just because there is a little bit of a gap here in case he needs to do anything there. But other than that, very good move for the Confederates. There is no shooting because everything has moved more than once. But they're in order to do some pretty nasty things next turn if the Union cannot get their lines moving. So we will go to top of turn 3. Okay, Union movement done for turn 3. So on the left flank here, first thing I did was order these 2 brigades, or regiments, I'm sorry, that have been sitting back here not doing anything, to move up, form a battle line, move again. They rolled a 3, which was nice. They moved well enough to get to where they need to be. From there, I decided to try to get the 24th Ohio moving because I wanted to get them up. 1, because then they'll be able to do some shooting, and 2, it would then open up a lane that my artillery could come up and try to get some shots over there. They failed on a 10. That finished 1st Brigade. 2nd Brigade here on the left. Again, first thing I did was try to prioritize by getting some artillery up. And I wanted them basically to up and unlimber, which they did on a 2, which is awesome. So they are in position. Now I think because they are manhandled artillery, not horse-drawn, I have to look to see if the if unlimbering is a free move or not. Because if it is, they will get to fire. If it isn't, they don't. So I'll have to look that up real quick before we get into shooting. Next, over here, I wanted them to kind of move up once to shoot, which they succeeded on a 7, which is good enough for me because now they are in shooting range. And back here, I tried to get these guys here, the 13th Indiana, to kind of move up, form a battle line, and start to support there. They failed. I re-rolled. I failed again on the exact same thing on a 9. Actually, I'm dumb. They will have passed on a 9 because they are in march column as an 8. So let me get that moved. Let me fix that real quick. See, this is why I do things and talk it through. And that is fixed. So I had them shuffle over to the left here to start to try to get in the battle line. Obviously with the 9 they still can't because even in march column now it's a 9. Still didn't pass. Over here then I did try to get these guys on a battle line and did form on a legit 10. Or fail on a legit 10. So I'm learning. Again guys, be patient. This is kind of a learning game for me, which is why I like solo games. It gives me a chance to read through the rules and figure stuff out. So if you do happen to see anything that I don't correct in time, please, again, put down in the comments. This is a game system that I love. I love the American Civil War, and I'm learning as she goes. So let me look at some things for shooting, and we will actually get to roll some dice finally at the top of turn 3. Let's see what we got. Alright, so for clarification, I am playing them as foot artillery, so even though they're limbered, and technically they're drawn by horses when they're limbered, they do categorize them as separate. So they're foot artillery, which means it does take a turn, a move to limber or unlimber, which means they will not get to fire this turn. So they will not get to fire, but we do have some other shooting. Okay, so we do have some opening shots of the game finally. So 7th Indiana going into the 25th Virginia, needing 4s. That is beautiful. So 2 and a disorder. Got the disorder on them. Again, sorry, I'm still working camera work. So we go 2 saves, 4 ups. So saved 1, took 1. So stamina and a disorder right off the bat. That is good. The next firing we have is right over here with the 14th Indiana into the 31st Virginia. So another disorder, nothing else. And a stamina. This is okay. This helps. And then we have over here, we got the 15th Indiana into Hansborough. Three shots, just 1 hit. I hope these dice show up okay on the camera. I got them obviously specifically for this. That is a stamina hit. So there we go. Top of turn 3, we finally get some shooting. We got 2 disordered and some stamina across the board on that. So that is okay for the first round of shooting, specifically just to try to hold things up while the Unions get their lines together. So we will go to bottom of 3 and see how the Confederates retaliate. Turn 3 Confederate move done, and it's not looking good for the Union, just based off of that move. So let's start over here on the left flank and see what we did. So we had Lieutenant Colonel Hansborough's guys moved up 1 because I still wanted them to get shots in. They passed on an 8. The 3rd Arkansas, who was behind in here, I wanted them to move up to kind of start to get some clean shots there as well. They passed on a 3. Obviously the 31st is disordered, can't really do anything. Artillery's already set up, so good there. So they got themselves in a nice position. Again, that is concerning now that they can fire next turn. But I'm hoping to do something here that maybe can help. Probably not this turn, but we'll see. So Colonel Johnson, 1st Georgia, did get to move up once, which is enough to put them in shooting range, which is what I was looking for. I believe. Actually, I have to check that because I think the creek slowed them down. 12th Georgia, they wanted to move up and form a battle line in behind, which happened. So they're in a good position. I'd like them to be a little bit further, but that creek kind of slowed them down a little bit. And because I only declared 1 move because I wanted them to shoot, and they got an obvious on a 6, I could have moved them further, but I didn't. And that may be a decision that hurts me there. On the right-hand flank here with Colonel Taliaferro, artillery obviously is still in a good position. 25th is still disordered, can't really do anything. The 23rd, I wanted to move up once because they are in shooting range, and they passed easily on a 5. And then the 44th kind of came in here to fill this gap to try to get a partial shot on those guys there. So again, moved in pretty well. This would be concerning if I could break through here just because of that flank. But are starting to already kind of close the gap, especially on the Confederates' right flank. If I can continue to push and keep those guys across the creek, I have a pretty good setup over here. Not too worried about that for the Confederates. The left flank, again, we do have some artillery that's going to be pretty danger close, especially with 6 guns. But with them still having 2 guys back there in March column, Confederates feel pretty confident here if they can do enough hurt here, and then get Colonel Johnson in the center to push up. So we played the scenario yesterday. I played the scenario twice for demo days. It's just a really good demo scenario. And both times, Colonel Johnson, being the smallest brigade, has been the one that won the game for the Confederates by pushing across that ford and hammering the center. So curious to see if I could do that or if it's just me as a bad gamer, but let's see what happens here. So there we go. So we have some shots to do, so let me lay stuff out and we will go through the shooting. So first up, 23rd Virginia into the 25th Ohio. 3 shots, needing 4s. Got 2. Should probably keep some Union dice closer by. There we go. So 2 good successes. Saved 1, took 1. 25th took a casualty. Stamina, if you will. So I'm gonna allow this shot here. I would think because of there and there, it's going to be obscured shot. Just because, like the 50% rule. I'm just going to make it easy and say it's an obscured shot, needing 5s. Doesn't matter at all. So that was a 6, obviously. Saved 1, took 1, and took a disorder. Whoop, that was up here on the 7th Indiana. Not bad shooting. So the 25th Virginia is going to fire into them as well, needing 5s because they are disordered. So 2 successes there. Saved both of them, thankfully. Next we do have the artillery, Shoemaker's Battery, firing into that is the 25th there. It is long range, so 1 shot is going to be a hit. And if I remember correctly, that goes up to a 5 because it's -1 for long range. Doesn't matter, misses on a 2. And then we do have the 1st Georgia also firing into the 25th. All misses, thankfully. They're taking enough beating. And we do have the artillery there as well on the hill that is going to fire down into the 25th as well. It is long range. So hits on a 5. Saves on a 5. Okay, next up, 31st Virginia into the 14th Indiana. They are disordered, so 5s. So 1 hit there. And that is a really cocked die. It's good. And so just in case it comes up, I do play that if it bounces out of the tray, it does not count. Next up, we have those guys on the hill. I can't unfortunately see into the 14th Indiana. 3 shots. So we're going to have 2 hits. And saved 1, they're going to take 1. Okay, and then there on the end, Hansborough's into the 15th Indiana. I did measure, we are just outside of close range, so it's still needing 4s. Doesn't matter, got a 6. And failed it, so stamina and a disordered. So I was able to put some hits on him. Thankfully, I did better saving than I thought, and the artillery missing was a big thing. So there we go. That's what we look like now after shooting. So we are going to go to top of turn 4. Alright, so I actually got some decent movement from the Union to try to clean up their lines and fill the gaps. So starting with 1st Brigade, we're in shooting range with everything, so unless I had to aggressively fill a gap, they were just kind of moving up once to get some shots in. I had no initiative orders, so these guys moved up once. They rolled a 7, well enough. These guys, I wanted them to move up once again to fill the gap. They did on a 4. Those guys are disordered. These guys finally moved up. The 24th Ohio finally moved up to try to open up a gap for my artillery to move up and unlimber. And they only rolled an 8, which is killing me having 6-gun batteries and not being able to get any shots in. So that kind of hurt a little bit right there. And then over here on the right flank, I'm still struggling a little bit to get things where I wanted to. The 14th Indiana did move up on a 6. Obviously that is a little concerning, but my hope was to try to start filling in gaps down here. So the 9th Indiana did get to move once. They actually rolled a 7. I ran out of dice, so they rolled a 7, got to where they needed to be. These guys finally formed a, had to move up once and form a battle line, which they finally did. And then I was able to manhandle the guns over. They got a 6 actually, so that's their dice there as well. So it's starting to be a little bit of a cluster here. That there's going to be some shooting in here. It's going to be some obscured stuff. But if I can just try to hamper them from coming down that hill on me, I'll be okay. And then hopefully, because I'll have some secondary stuff, even if they hammer those guys, they can kind of hold. So right flank is a little bit clustered up. Hopefully can hold a little bit. Getting those guns manhandled and up at least will give me some shots there. And then the right flank is just going to kind of continue to trade and continue to move up a little as they can. That creek really does slow you down at only 6 centimeters, so we'll see what happens. Really now it's going to come down to if whoever can get a few units disordered and find those gaps. So let's get to some shooting. So we're just going to kind of roll down the left flank and go up for the Union. So first 25th on the 25th Ohio on the 23rd Virginia, needing 4s, 3 1s, outstanding. So we got a shot here at the 25th. Technically these guys, again, the 23rd Virginia is the closest. So their shots are going to have to go on them. Needing 4s, 2, Save both of them. Then we have the 7th Indiana into the 25th, needing 5s because I'm disordered. Not a single one. This is going to be a great round of shooting. 24th Ohio back into the 1st Georgia, needing 4s. 1. And saved it. Okay, artillery is going to fire into the 31st Virginia. And this is where I'm kind of hoping to make that gap right there. So they are within medium range, so it is 3 shots because it's a 6-gun battery. Yep, gonna be that type of game. Okay, well, let's go right into the 14th Indiana, firing into them as well. There we go. 3 hits with disorder. Saved 1, took 2, and a disorder. So the 31st are now shaken and disordered, which would be great if I would have put a hit with the artillery on them. But so far, nothing that I can do about that. We're going to allow the 9th Indiana to shoot in. I'm going to actually come over for this one. So this is a tough one because they are the closest there, but because of the obscuring, I am going to allow them to hit up on the hill. Still going to be obscuring either way, so I get to choose, but I really kind of want to hit the 3rd and try to put a disorder on them. So the 9th Indiana is going to fire up on the 3rd with 3 shots, needing 5s. That's a cock die. I already got 1, but I need a 6. Nope, just 1. Nope, so takes the stamina. I'll put that on in a second, and then we have at the very end there. Again, still just out of close range, so needing 5s because of the disorder. 1. Failed it as well, so over here, both the 3rd and Hansborough's battalion will take a stamina. So not too bad. Would have been great to break them, or at least get them to take a break test. Really hoping to do something here because I might. That is a flank charge. I might charge in there. We'll have to. I'm gonna have to look at that a little closer. See what I want to do. So unfortunately, not a whole lot on the right or left flank of the Union line here to actually try to slow them down a little bit. So we will remove the disorder for the Union and come back to bottom of 4. Okay, most of the movement done, but I want to record this part because I have pondered it. We are going to charge there because it will be a flank charge, and just kind of thinking, measuring things out, because it's a flank charge, there won't be any support. It's my best chance to hit them now, especially with these guys in the condition they're in. Now, I have to pass this because Russ needs to get over there and try to rally them, but they're disordered anyway, so he can't. So it's tough. So I decided I'm going to go with this charge. It is a negative modifier of -1, I believe, are the rules. They're not, obviously I haven't seen the elephant or anything like that. We're just playing basic. So we're going to try to charge down the hill at them. So we're going to roll this on camera because a 9 will not do it. And I've got the general is over there because he's been doing, the line's been doing well, not big need. So that is not going to happen as a charge. That's a failed order, which means the left flank ends. Let's go real quick here. On the right, I didn't do anything because or in the center, I'm sorry. Colonel Johnson didn't do anything because he's in a good position. He doesn't want to block the artillery. So he's just going to stay there and fire. On the right-hand side, 23rd Virginia was able to move up once, which thankfully the 44th was unable to follow and close that gap again, because if they hadn't, we would have had the same thing here next turn with the 32nd Ohio charging in. And the 25th just kind of wheeled a little bit to close that gap instead of being a straight line across, just to help refuse that flank a little bit. So that has been movement for Confederate turn 4. The right side is still doing pretty good at pushing. The center is kind of holding right now to see what happens. I am stacked there, so a charge there would be nice, but that creek is going to slow me down. And the left flank is looking a little nervous, so the 12th Georgia may end up swinging to the left a little bit if I have to pull the 31st Virginia out. but because they're already disordered at shaken, that fail happened, that charge fail happened, so they're going to get shot up. They're probably going to end up having to possibly do a break test, the Union shooting anyway. So that is turn 4 movement for the Confederates, so let's get into some shooting. Alright, in keeping with tradition, I'm just going to start on the right flank of the Confederacy and work my way down. So we have the 23rd into the 25th. That is now close, so needing 3s. That is brutal. All 3 hit with the disorder. And I saved 1. So they are now shaken and disordered as well. That's a great start. Right here we have another close shot. So 2 with a disorder. Saved both but disordered. Here we have 4s needed. 1 hit. No save. It's not looking good. Not looking good. Down the center here. They are still technically within that arc, so just needing 4s. 2 hits with the disorder. Saved both, but disordered. This is, yeah, starting to look bad for the Union here. Some good shooting. Artillery, down the center there. It is still long range, I believe. Nope, sorry, I just measured that. It's actually medium. So 2 shots. There's going to be 2 hits with artillery. Outstanding. Okay. Saved 1. The 4 will fail because it's artillery at medium range. And then we have the poor 31st Virginia there. That's all shaken up and disordered. With 2 hits. And they're going to disorder them, which is good. So, actually, wow. Did better there than I thought. So 2 stamina and a disorder. Maybe we didn't need to charge. And I believe they could still shoot even though they failed to charge, because it's just a failed order, which means they can still shoot. So 3 shots. 2 hits. Saved 1. They're going to take another stamina, which means they are now shaken and disordered as well. This is not going well. And then on the far left there, 3 shots. That is close. So 2, thankfully. Or I'm sorry, just 1. And failed it anyway, though. Place that on. I'm running out of stamina markers. So a decent round of shooting there. Let me zoom out a little bit and show. So we got some staminas coming across. We got a shaken and disorder. All kinds of stamina hits. Disordered. Shaken and disordered. So luckily they're all part of separate brigades, so nothing to worry about there. It's tough playing the whipped rules or the broken rules at this small scale, especially when you have like Colonel Johnson with 2 brigades there in the center, or 2 regiments in the center. Once one is whipped, you know, or shaken, it's kind of technically broken. So we'll kind of play it as it is, depending on the situation, because I like to play more thematic stuff anyway. So there we go. Some good rounds of shooting by the Confederates. Them being disordered and shaken in the center there is huge, with them being disordered and shaken, so my artillery has got to do something next turn. So let's get the table cleaned up, and we will go to top of 5 already. Okay, so Union movement is done. So let's start on the left flank, because that was pretty easy. Nothing happened. These guys are all kind of staying where they are. 1st Brigade didn't really do anything. The artillery moved up once and tried to unlimber and only did it on an 8. I'm really struggling with the artillery, because you got to have clear lines with them. You can't just keep them in the back and have them shoot overhead. And so trying to find a spot for them to get in there to shoot is being difficult. So my thought was, if I can get them up and get them unlimbered, I might start to retire these guys a little bit and try to put some artillery into their face, but it didn't really work. So I kept those guys up front where they are. I did do a rally order here on the 7th Indiana. Passed it, was able to get one stamina off, so they're attached there. On the right-hand flank, did some interesting things here. So I did a initiative move here to do a disorderly retreat. So I'm actually going to put a second disorder marker there just so I know that they're still disordered for next turn. Disorderly retreat back to actually where the 13th Indiana was in front of them here, because you have to move from the closest enemy, and technically that was them on the hill, so I didn't have to come back through all of this. I had to actually pull back this way. So that is where they kind of ended up after the shuffle. I then actually moved the 13th Indiana up through. They actually passed their command to move, but then they failed their interpenetration passage lines on a 2, so just moved up in front of the unit that they had just passed through. Over here, again, not a move, but I attached 2nd Brigade to the 15th Indiana to remove a stamina, and that was pretty much it. I used an initiative move here on the 9th Indiana as well to move them up a little bit, just so I could actually make room for this whole nut roll that's happening here. I did not plan that well enough, and with the way my guys moved up, it was kind of thrown in haphazardly. So I've got the battle lines over here that I should be able to push through there, but it's just not working that way. So we're going to continue to see what happens. And sorry, the sun is actually starting to come through my window that's here now, so it's putting a shade on it. So that's where we are. So we're going to get into some shooting. Okay, starting with the 25th in Ohio into the 23rd Virginia. I am shaken disordered, but close range, so 4s. There we go. 2 with a disorder. Ooh, failed both. I like it. 23rd will take 2 and a disorder. Here we have a close shot, but I am disordered, so back to 4s. There we go. 2 disordered and a 3rd hit. So 3 saves right off the bat. Saved 2 of them. Not bad. 44th will be disordered and take a stamina. Here we're going to need straight 4s. Not a thing. Okay. In the center here, 24th Ohio, firing on the 1st Georgia. I am disordered, so 5s. 1 hit, but it is a disorder. And a fail, so there we go. Georgia boys, welcome to the fight. Okay, artillery over here. This is the important part. They are going to, 4th U.S. Light is going to fire in on the 31st Virginia. It is still only medium range, it's not close range. So 3 shots. So of course I got to reroll that because it's cocked, but it is a 6, so it's a disordered hit. Oh, fail this, so all kinds of bad things happen. They pass, unfortunately, but they're now disordered. If I can get one other shot on them, it would do some things, but I don't have any shots because those guys there can't fire, and the 9th has to fire up on the hill as the closest target. So they are going to end up somehow surviving again. So 1 hit with the disorder. Saves it on a 4. Let me get the disorder on him. And then I'll put disorder there in a second. And then on the far end there, 3 shots again, needing 3s because of close. So 3 hits with the disorder. Saved 1 is going to take 2. So I need a disorder on the 3rd and a disorder on them, and they're going to take 2, and that is going to be a break test on these guys. Hansborough's boys may be breaking. That would be huge on the flank there for me. So that's all the shooting right away. So let's do the break test. So they are shaken and disordered with 1 excess. Oh, they're good. They love it. I just rolled boxcars. Yep, they love it. So we'll get rid of the excess. And they are going to stick around, unfortunately. I think that is all of the shooting that we have. That was the only break test we had to do. So, quick look at the lines here. We actually did pretty good on the flank here. We got a whole bunch of disordered in the center. The whole right flank is disordered. And this is where it gets tough because we do have technically 2 shaken units. So technically that brigade would be broken. But I don't think I'm going to play it that way. I think I'm going to play if the majority are whipped. Because again, it's only turn 5. Technically, again, as we get into the actual history of this, it would kind of make sense maybe to start to fall back. But I'm having fun. Hope you're having fun. We're going to play it through. We're not going to allow shaking because technically, so I had this conversation with Ray, who is very into Black Powder as well. Technically, I would have a chance to rally some of those shaken. And we ran into a really weird situation yesterday where we were playing Culp's Hill and it had 5 brigades. 3 of them, one of them was legitimately whipped, but then 2 more became shaken and had to fall back because then technically the brigade is broken. However, in regular Black Powder you would remove them, but technically I would still have a chance to rally some of those shaken units to put them back into fighting order. So how would that work type of deal? So we're going to play this as, long story short with my rambling, that because nothing is technically whipped, they're still in the fight until that starts to happen. So there we go. They were shooting top of turn 5. So let's go into Confederate movement, bottom of 5. Alright, so Confederate move, bottom of 5 is done. Nothing moved. Didn't really have a need to. The things that are disordered, I would love to disorderly retreat, but I'd love to get these guys back. But then I'm blocking artillery. 12th Georgia is going to take a long time to get up there anyway, so I'd rather have them help kind of hold the center. So nothing moved, so we're going to go straight to shooting. Again, starting on this side, working our way down. So we're going to go right here, the 23rd to the 25th Ohio. It is close, but we are disordered, so back to 4s. So 1 hit with the disorder, that's pretty good. That's what we need. And it's failed, so even better for the Virginia boys because that will now be a panic check right there. We're going to go into the center here, so it is close. Disorder, so back to 4s. And I technically should have been doing it as an obscured shot because of all this, so we're going to do it on 5s. 1 hit with the disorder. Saved it, but disordered. And we got in the center here, 25th Virginia, needing 4s down there. That is 3 hits. Okay. Come on, guys, you got this. No. No. That is 3, which means they're going to have a break test as well. I don't know. This may be over turn 5. Down the center here, I realized last time I think I forgot to fire the artillery, but that's okay. Not really, but we're going to play this that way. So they are medium range, so 2 shots. So that is going to be 1 hit. Medium artillery. Nope, that's going to be... Man, I'm running out of stamina on the Union side. There we go. So they're shaken now as well. 1st Georgia is going to fire into them, needing 5s because we are disordered. Well, there we go. Disordered now with 2. And shaken as well now. So, wow. Okay. We still have some more shooting to do. Alright, 31st into the 9th Indiana, down the hill. We are shaken, disordered, all that, so 5s. So 1 hit with the disorder. Okay. Okay. Saved it, but disordered. 9th Indiana, disordered. We still have the 31st up on the hill. 5s again. Nothing, thank you. We need a little bit of a reprieve. Down on the very end. Close range, but disordered. Doesn't matter when you hit with the 6. And failed. So, wowzer, was that a really good round of firing. So I owe some brake tests, and I'm gonna let me get the book on that, because I'm gonna be rolling quite a bit here. I want to make sure I get them right. So let's do a whole bunch of brake tests. So first one we have here is on the 25th. They have one excess on a 9, goes down to an 8. They're good. Excess goes away. Even being, I'm sorry, I forgot, even being disordered, that would still be good, because it's 7 or more, they're fine. Right here, we got the 7th Indiana with one excess, not disordered, but one excess. Boxcars, they're good. Take it all day. This is the one I'm worried about, because we have one excess, disordered, and caused by artillery, so we're at a -3 to this roll. And snake eyes. So they're going to be whipped. Let's remember that, because I'm going to have to do that in a second. So that'll be interesting with them being whipped now, because there goes my center line. But hey, at least the artillery now will have shots, right? Ugh, okay, and I think that was the only brake test, right? Because they're good. We got some shaking, but not anything there. So let's get these guys moved, show you where they are whipped. Alright, so the 24th Ohio are officially whipped, so they are perpetually in a state of shaken and disordered. If you're wondering why they are down 1 for showing shaken, is because with the whip there, they are basically stamina 2 for the rest of the game, -1 for shooting, all that kind of stuff. They stay on the table unless a enemy gets within 12 centimeters of them. They can still shoot if they have shots, but that's basically it. So that's the first whipped unit we have on the table. Again, I technically do have 2 others shaken in that brigade, but we're going to kind of keep them as whipped just to kind of play this out and see where it goes. Right flank is hurting as well, so it is not looking good for the Union in that state of shooting. So we're going to remove the disordered markers for the Confederates, and we're going to go to top of turn 6. Okay, so we actually didn't have much movement for the Union either, because everything is either disordered or where I need them to be. So, scanning down the line here, really again, nothing drastic except artillery. Finally, I ordered them just to unlimber. They passed on a 7, so they are unlimbered and can shoot. And 1st Brigade over here did a rally on the 7th Indiana again to get rid of 1 stamina. So that was really it for movement, so we're going to go straight into shooting for turn 6. Alright, 25th Ohio on 23rd Virginia. Basically disordered and within 6, so back up to 4s. These guys are still holding in and still putting in the work. So 2 hits with the disorder. So saved 1, so that's going to be a stamina and a disorder. So there we go. They're at least shaken and disordered. We got right here the 32nd Ohio into the 44th. Again, going to be back to 4s. That didn't count. Back to 4s because of close and disorder. So again, 2 and a disorder. So let's keep this up, guys. That's 1 and a disorder. So you can definitely tell it's getting late in the day for these guys. They're starting to feel it here. It's starting to slow down a little bit. So 7th Indiana. So that is going to be 3 hits straight off. Whew. Not too bad. Saved all but 1. Okay, now finally the artillery that can finally do something. 6-gun battery within half range is getting 3 shots in on the 1st Georgia. Let's see if we can keep them at bay. That's going to be 2 hits. Disorder would have been nice, but that will work as well, because that at least puts them to shaking. Again, 1 more on them would be outstanding, because then they would have to test. But here's the big one. 4th U.S. on the 31st, who is already shaken. That's going to be a disorder. And that is going to be... Oh, they save both. Ah, they save both. Alright, yeah, because it's not close range, so 5. But they are disordered at least. Again, guys, they survive. The 31st Virginia is taking a beating in the center of that line. but never enough to do anything about it. So we got some shots up there on the hill from the Indiana and those guys. It's going to be 3 shots. It's going to be 5s because I am disordered. So nothing there. And then down on the end again, disordered and close, needing, sorry, I should probably zoom in, needing 5s. So recording 101, make sure you're checking your battery level. So was rolling 4 on the end there. I'm not quite sure where the battery cut out, but needing 5s, and I rolled that. So no shots on those guys down there. We did not have any brake tests or anything needed. Very close again, but could just not get that 1 extra shot that was needed. So that is it for shooting. We're going to go to movement, bottom of 6. Movement for Confederates, turn 6. Pretty simple. There was no technically any movement, but I'm trying to bleed off stamina wherever I can. So Colonel Taliaferro moved up to the 25th pass to remove 1 of their stamina. And the center here, Colonel Johnson, moved up to join the 1st Georgia. Failed the first attempt, luckily. General Jackson is right there. So passed on the 2nd on a 5 to move up where he needed to remove his stamina on the 1st Georgia. And then on the left-hand flank here, all the way over here, Colonel Rust, luckily, was way back here, but rolled a 4, so was able to move to join them, because you roll for the commander initiative first before he joins, and because he was so far away, luckily I needed a 4, passed, removed the stamina. So that is really it, just trying to basically hold the line a little bit, and still trying to find a gap where they can, and let's go to shooting and see if they can make that happen. Down the line as always, 23rd Virginia, 25th Ohio, close range and disordered. Give me 1 hit. Can they bounce it? Nope. 25th. I'm pretty sure. You know what? I apologize. There was beads here and I moved them. Pretty sure they were already at 3. How did I do that? Okay. Trying to clean up the table and clean it up too much. 44th Virginia into the 32nd Ohio in the center here. 2 hits. Right, yep, 5's needed. Actually, 4's needed, but either way. Saved 1, took 1. And then we got 3 shots here, needing 4s onto the 7th. 1. That didn't count, was not in. Saved. Artillery now has the closest shot of the artillery. It is now long range, and it's going to be obscured because it's firing artillery, so I need 5s, but let's see if I can do something to them. Nope. Same thing, 1st Georgia is going to fire into the looms there that just moved up. Same thing, needing 5s. Nothing. Outstanding. Okay, this debacle over here. 31st into the 9th, still needing 5s. There we go, 2 hits with the disorder. Again, these guys are hammering it. Failed both of them as well. Uh-oh, so the 9th is now shaken and disordered. Let's see if the 3rd Arkansas can put the nail in that coffin. There's 3 shots. Right there, 3 shots, needing 4s. Just 1. They're already disordered, so it doesn't matter, but that will shake them. Or that will, yeah, give them a brake test. So we're going to have to do a brake test on the 9th there. And we got Hansborough's guys still firing in on the 15th. Let's do that real quick. 3 shots, now needing 3s. 1 hit. No save. Shaken as well. So I owe 2 brake tests. 1 down there. Lots of shaking, lots of shaking. 1 over here. So 25th, let's see what you guys can do. Can you bounce this? 4 minus, or sorry, 6 is a 5. I have to see what that is, because that is something. So I don't have that chart 100% memorized yet. So they're going to have to roll on that. And then down on the end there, let's roll for that. 1 excess, they are disordered. Yeah, 1 excess, they are disordered, no artillery. So that will put them to a 4, which will whip them. Thankfully, that's a different brigade, but they are going to be whipped as well. So let me get them moved where it is. Let me find out exactly what this is on a 5. Get them moved. I'm pretty sure it's 2 back, but I have to check that. And those boys over there are whipped, so it's starting to not look good. So let me get those moved. Alright, so real quick, the 25th Ohio, it was actually just 1 move backwards for the break test. So they moved back 1, back across the creek. They've been taking a beating. They've held as long as they can. And then over here, the 9th Indiana fell back to there. They are now whipped as well. So that's 2 whipped units I have, but luckily there are 2 different brigades. So 1 more unit gets whipped in each brigade. I guess technically artillery counts as well, but we still have 2 more turns to play. We're going to play them out, but obviously the Union line has not pushed across that creek at all. And the few advances they did have not been enough to do anything. So let's go to, yeah, top of turn 7 now for the Union. Movement phase for the Union done. Again, no actual movement. I tried to get 1st Brigade over here at 25th Ohio to rally them. I failed on a 9. I then tried to get 2nd Brigade to rally the 15th Indiana. Failed on a 9. And that was it. General Reynolds just tried to move over here to try to save these guys as he can. I had no other initiative moves. I totally forgot that I wanted to move these guys up, but I think they're still in range to shoot, so that'll be fine. I just didn't want to give up the creek, but that's okay. It is what it is at this point. Let's get into shooting. Alright, start with the 25th down here. I think I forgot a few times that actually when they're shaking there should be a -1 when shooting 2. I don't think it mattered too much, but I just realized I don't think I've been doing that. But here we have a situation where I'm finally not disordered, but I am still shaking. So, needing 5s to hit. Rolled 1. And we saved it. Okay. 32nd Ohio, in on the 44th. We're going to call that as obscured because that's what it was when shooting the other way. Doesn't matter, 1 hit. Saved it. 7th Indiana on 25th, needing 4s. There we go, 2 with a disorder. Saved both, but took the disorder. Artillery. Come on, guys, break that center. Looms firing in. It's medium range, needing, still needing 4s, but getting 3 shots because of large battery. There we go, disordered in 1. Medium range, saved 1, took 1, and a disorder. Again, here we go, shaken and disordered. Can I get 1 break test on the Confederates? So I think I'm gonna wait on that other artillery. I'm gonna have the 13th Indiana fire up the 31st right there. Let's see if we can do this. Come on, guys, needing 4s. 1. Hey, finally, excess stamina. Finally a break test on the 31st. So, I still have the 4th U.S. Light Artillery. That technically can see the 31st as closest, but I guess that's not an obscured shot because of the 45. So I have to... I'd love to shoot the 1st Georgia, but I'm going to declare it. I got to declare it on them because that's within. So, 3 shots. Well, there we go. Saved 1. Took 2 more. So that's going to put 3 excess on the 31st. And that was a disorder too, wasn't it? So that'll be hopefully breaking them. We shall see. And then on the far right, again, these guys are just smacking each other across that creek. I am shaken. It is close range, needing 4s. There we go. 2 with the disorder. Saved 1. It's going to take 1 in disorder. I'm actually going to have to pull more shaken tokens. I didn't think it'd get this bad. Okay, so not too bad. We do owe a break test on the 31st. Those boys are probably, sadly, going to run. They are disordered. They have 3 excess casualties, and it was caused by artillery. So they are at -5. Yep, they are officially whipped. Awesome. We'll get those moved. And then that will be it for Union. So we're going to go to the bottom of Confederate 7. So it's getting pretty bloody. I mean, it's definitely going to call this as a Union victory. Really, again, if we were playing the whole shaken and broken stuff, this game would have been over by now. But let's play out the last turn and a half because I'm just curious. So this is where the 31st ended up. They actually had to fall back twice because they were on top of the artillery. So they have fallen back. They are now whipped, which created a nice gap right there, which if I could do something, it would be great. But I think it's going to be too late in the game to exploit that. So that's the first whipped where it actually created a decent line. But that's where we're at. So we're going to do movement turn 7 for Confederates. Alright, so the Confederates, we did a few things here just to try to clean up some lines. First off here on the right, Taliaferro, I'll get that right sooner or later, tried to actually move over to rally them. Failed on a 10, that ended them. In the right, we had all kinds of interesting stuff here. So the 12th Georgia gave a command to passage lines, move forward. They passed on a 5, they rolled a 3, which means they could pass forward. And then the 1st Georgia just kind of hung out right there, still being disordered and shaken. So, and I hope I did that right. There's some weird things when it comes to disordered and passage lines and what you need, but this should be right. And then on the left-hand flank here, all I did was 3rd Arkansas actually moved down off the hill into the creek. Simply because I would rather meet them there at the creek than let those guys try to push forward and exploit that line. Now they have to move in front of their artillery if they want to do it. So that happened there. Colonel Russ is still over here waiting for next turn to be able to shake that a rally on them. But we'll see what happens because next turn technically is the last turn. So that is it for movement. Again, still holding the line strongly, starting to take a beating, but we'll see what happens. And let's get to shooting for the Confederates. Okay, second verse, same as the first. 23rd Ohio into the 25th. We are shaken, needing 5s. There's 2. Get those trees out of there, they can move around. Failed both of them. That is going to be 2 excess stamina for the 25th. 44th into them. Still doing that obscuring shot, we're calling it. Doesn't matter. 1 hit with it being disorder. So failed and a disorder. Oh boy. Okay. Down the center here. Needing 4s. Nothing. Artillery on artillery. I actually have to check the range on that. Give me 1 second. So range actually is just under 24, so it is actually medium range. So it's going to be 2 shots, needing 5s. 1 hit with it being a disorder. That's going to be a fail. And obviously, even being big guns, they still only have stamina 2, so not too bad there. So 12th Georgia is actually going to move up and fire their rifles for the first time. And they're going to do the same thing, try to fire on looms there. 3 shots, needing 5s because of it being artillery. Not a 1. Yep. Did not pack the powder. So we got some, what is that? Is that Anderson's battery? That's what it was. Artillery up there, firing down the artillery there. Needing, it's only 2 shots. Needing 5s. There we go. Disorder. And saves it on a 6. So, don't know if the glare is hitting them or not. It's hard to tell. Okay. That was that artillery. The Arkansas boys who moved down the hill are going to fire 3 shots, needing 4s on the 13th there. That I don't think has been in the fight either. Wow, look at that. It fell on its own. Wow, okay. So 2 hits. And a disorder. Saved both of them with boxcars, but we'll take the disorder. That is going to ruin what I was going to do next turn, so that's exactly what the Confederates needed there. Because that cluttered that whole thing up. And then down on the end, shaken slash disordered within 6, so 1 hit. Sorry, there's a 5 there in the corner. I keep forgetting it's a bigger dice tray than normal. What am I doing? See, guys, now I'm even getting tired of the fight. So failed. That's the important part. That's going to be an excess. That's even more important. On the 15th. So we got some pretty good shooting. Don't mind my cat going psycho in the background. I got brake test here. Brake test there I got to do. If either of them fail, that whole brigade is gone. Which technically 50% of our brigades are gone, and I would probably call it a loss at this time. So we're going to see those brake tests are what's going to be important. We could probably not play out turn 8 because that'll probably determine it. So let's see what we can do. Okay, second brake test of the game for the 25th Indiana or Ohio. They were able to shake the first one. Let's see, they have 2 excess. Let's see what that does. 3 minus 2 is they are whipped, which means I have 2 whipped brigades now. The 24th Ohio and the 25th Ohio in this formation. I guess technically the artillery are part of it, so there's 5. So I guess technically the whole brigade, brigade is not whipped because there's only 2 regiments out of 3 that are whipped. That's tough because the artillery actually belongs to them and is not part of like headquarters that I've attached to them. So, all right, so they're whipped. Let's see what happens there. We got 1 brake test down there on the other flank. That's going to be boxcars. They are whipped as well. Outstanding. Let's get those moved. And by the way, I think I just said boxcars. They're definitely snake eyes. I wish they were boxcars, but they're definitely snake eyes. So the 25th has begun to fall back to pretty much where they had started off the table in the first place. Now they're going back. And the same thing over here. The 15th Indiana fell back. Technically only 6 because they were still in the water. So they're within 12 constantly, so they're going to end up getting pushed back eventually. Anyway, that is the end of turn 7. I'm actually going to call it there. I've decided simply because there's no way that the Union would recover to be able to take the creek. We've been bounced back pretty hard. We have a whole bunch of whipped units. There's 4 whipped units on the table. The Confederates are still holding strong. The 1 whipped unit, but still have quite a bit that they can recover from. So we're going to take one quick final look at the board. I'm going to clean it up. We're going to take one final look at the board of the status of everything, where things are, and then kind of discuss what happened historically at the battle, and then kind of how this played out. So we're going to call it there. Bottom of turn 7. It's going to be a Confederate victory. Again, we'll talk a little bit more in a second. Let me get this cleaned up and we'll discuss. Alright, so let's take a look at the state of everything, discuss this, and then we'll talk a little bit about what happened historically and see how close it shakes out. So, we are definitely going to call this a Confederate victory, simply because in the beginning I stated that the objectives were pretty simple. The Confederates had to bounce the Union back off of the creek and not let them cross over. And then, depending on the state of each force, we would look at it from there. The Union really needed to break through to the other side of the creek, keep main force on the other side, and then from there look at the state of the Confederate Army to see how well they were going to hold that. And it's pretty safe to say, looking at the lines here as we go. So let's look quickly at the Confederate line as they are pushed onto the creek pretty well. They're holding all the way across. They got the travelers repos there. They're holding a solid line over there. Although they obviously haven't crossed the creek, they weren't really meant to. The Union were meant to. and looking at where they were there, they started to kind of push and cross there, but they never got there in time. The Union, the center line, did not get there and got pushed back pretty hard. The artillery was late to get there, which caused that center to fail. And then same thing on the right. They couldn't get mobilized in enough time to get across the creek, and with them starting to push up there, it wasn't going to happen. So, unfortunately, General Reynolds has not met his goals. 2nd Brigade here, we have 2 units whipped, a 3rd that's shaken, and then the 13th is actually in pretty decent shape just because they hadn't been able to get there. Yeah, they're disordered but no stamina. Excuse me. So really this brigade would be whipped because the 3rd group is shaken. Just could not push like they wanted to. They really had a good chance to actually get up there. If the artillery could have pounded Johnson in the center there, the 2nd Brigade could have pushed up that hill and done some work, but did not. On the left flank here for this brigade, we got the 25th Ohio that is whipped, and the 24th Ohio that is whipped. And then I have 32nd Ohio is still technically okay. 2 stamina, 7th Indiana, Looms. They're all hurt pretty bad there, so would not take much to really put another shake in, and technically they would be broken by the actual rules as well. So definitely not in a good state of affairs. If we come over to the Confederate side, see how the table looks from their side. General Jackson is pretty happy. He's been kind of hanging out in the center there the whole time. Really hasn't had to bounce around a whole lot. We have Colonel Taliaferro's, who, yeah, we have 1 shaken, but that's really it. They've been able to push on the right here. The Traveler's Repo is pretty good and hold the line while their artillery is set up nicely down that road and could do what they needed to do. Colonel Johnson, even being small but mighty in the center here, the Georgias have held out very strongly. 1st Georgia did take a beating. Technically, I guess these guys would be considered whipped as well because there's only 2 brigades, or 2 regiments, excuse me, in that, and one of them is shaken, disordered. But again, that's really tough on small units, and I think the rules have something. I know for the Napoleonics that small brigades don't get that way, don't get whipped or broken when that happens. I'm not sure the ACW rules, to be perfectly honest. If someone knows, please comment. But either way, they've been able to hold that forward pretty well and did their job. On the left-hand flank here, Colonel Rust got very aggressive, pushed up to hold the creek where he needed to. The 3rd Arkansas and Hansborough's battalion did a very good job of pushing forward, holding that creek. I mean, Hansborough and the 15th here exchanged gunfire almost the entire game, and finally was able to whip him and push him a little bit. Unfortunately, the 31st Virginia did fall back, but man, did they take a beating this entire game and be able to dish it out as well. So definitely a Confederate victory here. So historically, this battle is always interesting to me because it's early, obviously, on in the Civil War. There was another, and usually I try to remember this stuff, and I don't have my phone on me to look at it. There was another brigade that was about 9 miles down the road, heard the gunfire in the morning, tried to get there. About 5 hours later, when they marched there and got there, they engaged. Reynolds had started to push one of the flanks back, but ended up not being able to take full commitment of that. Surprise, surprise. And after about another few hours of fighting, about six hours of fighting, I think, total, both sides just kind of decided to fall back and fight another day. Neither of them were gaining ground and was not worth it. The interesting thing about this is because it was so early in the war, both sides were still obviously trying to get the publicity and political sway, and both sides reported that they had caused enemy losses somewhere in the 300 to 400 range to their superiors, because they were trying to get superiority and trying to get that publicity, again, if you want to call it that way, of we did really well. In reality, there was less than 100 casualties total during this battle. I believe one side had 33 casualties, one had 35. There was like 13 soldiers lost, and then a small handful, fully wounded on both sides or killed on both sides. Very small actual scale battle, which is why I only wanted to play till 8 turns, because this could drag out until you finally break stuff. but really, in reality, it was not that grand scale of a battle. They kind of pushed and probed each other, realized they weren't gaining any ground, and fell back. So really, we could have called this by turn 5 by those standards. Once the Confederates were kind of dug in along that creek, that it was going to be tough to get across it, and wasn't going to go anywhere. So, yeah, historically, it was kind of a very tiny, small draw. Played out on the tabletop here. It was definitely a decisive Confederate victory. If we would have called it kind of at that point where once the Confederates had the creek, Reynolds just kind of says, yep, this isn't going to happen, withdrew. We didn't have any whipped at that time. We had a few shaken units, but it would have definitely matched historically a little bit better. So that was it. Again, I know I got stuff wrong. Please comment. Again, I'm fairly new at this game, and it's our first time recording on a channel. Please let me know how I did recording, how I can make it better. I tried to do the hand cam this time, hoping that works a little bit better so I can kind of move around and look at stuff. Hopefully it wasn't too shaky, and hopefully I was actually zoomed in on the stuff that I was trying to show. And again, doing the movement off camera just seemed logical to me, that you guys weren't just watching me move measuring tape around quite a bit. So I hope it worked out. I hope it looked good. I hope you enjoyed it. The obligatory like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. We're hoping to put some more stuff up. I would love to do some more Black Powder. There's a couple guys in the club that do have some of them. So we're going to try to combine them, that maybe we have enough to actually do one of the larger battles. But anyone who has played this stuff knows that it's a lot of painting. As I'm zooming in on these guys, it's a lot of figures, a lot of painting, a lot of detail, depending how detailed you want to get. And so hopefully we can get that done. But that is all. I've rambled on long enough. This video is going to be longer than I thought. I hope you all enjoyed. And until next time, happy gaming.